Some people in this world are on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil, and some, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel.
And I'm Nicole Crowell. You may have heard us as we worked on stories and series about law enforcement and crime. And it's safe to say we've seen some of the best and worst of human nature.
We decided there's no greater honor than bringing you the stories of the men and women who seek out the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who put the pieces together on some of the biggest Mississippi crime stories of our time.
Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. I'm Therese Apel. Nicole is out today, so everybody just, you're going to miss her. I miss her already. Nicole, you're probably watching out there somewhere. So today we have a really exciting episode. This is absolutely going on now. This is current events. And I need to go ahead and put a disclaimer on it. I not only covered this story, but this happened to friends of mine, which we'll discuss kind of what kind of position that put all of us in at different times. But just to go ahead and put that out there. The other thing I want to go ahead and say is this episode is dedicated to our friend Chris Piku, who we lost last weekend, a K-9 officer, narcotics agent that across the board has made an incredible impact on Mississippi law enforcement. And it's an incredible loss to all of us. So this episode is for him. Thank you, Chris, for everything you gave to all of us. I think he touched everyone in this room. So today we are here to tell the Anthony Fox story. Anthony Fox, as many of you know, is a former Jackson police officer. He and two other officers, one of whom is here with us, Desmond Barney, were accused of killing a man that the evidence showed they did not kill. Now, one of the cases, the one that was Desmond Barney and Lincoln Lampley, was thrown out by the judge that had their case. But Anthony Fox's case was continued. I mean, stayed in court and he ended up being convicted. So we're going to talk about why he's sitting here today after 552 days in jail. He's back on the force. He's doing all kinds of good in the world. So let's get started. First, we'll introduce Barney and Fox. They're over here on the couch to my right. Fox, tell us about you right quick. You don't have to get into the other details. We'll do that in a second.
All right. Well, I'm Anthony Fox, born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. We came from a very poverty-stricken neighborhood, and my parents were blessed enough to get us out the hood and on to better things. My dream in life was to really be a firefighter. Got a family full of those, so that was my dream. Later on down the line, police kind of fell in my lap, and I've been loving doing God's work ever since.
Good deal. Now, Barney, tell us about you.
I'm Desmond Barney, born in Saginaw, Michigan, raised in Utica, Mississippi. My passion always been law enforcement. Not really much law enforcement in my family to point me that way, but, it's just something I always wanted to do. Started in JPD, ended up in Clinton. Pretty much it.
Okay, and we also have Francis Springer. He was an attorney on this case and kind of here from beginning to end. Francis, tell us about you.
Sure. Thank you for having me, number one, and it's a pleasure to be here with these gentlemen as well. But I'm Francis Springer. I've been an attorney now for about 13 years. My previous life, I was a deputy sheriff in Meridian, Lauderdale County. And I did get involved in this case from very early on and have been there all the way through. And I was convinced very early on, not only did these officers not commit a crime, no crime was committed. And I think that was finally shown in the end, fortunately. It was sad it had to take so long.
Definitely. So let's get started. Basically, you guys, and the way I got to know these guys, let's start there. When it was about 2017, 2018, I started a ride-along series. I've done a few since then, but it was with JPD. It was called Behind the Scenes JPD. And I rode with the street crimes unit. Well, not street crimes. It was actually at the time called the Gun Crimes Interdiction Team. And they were the front lines guys. Jump out boys was what the streets called them sometimes, but that's not exactly what they did. Anyway, you guys were on that team along with Lincoln Lampley and a bunch of other guys. So that's how I got to know these guys, and I got to kind of know how they did things and whatnot. So when these allegations came out, they basically, I hear that Anthony Fox, Desmond Barney, and Lincoln Lampley are accused of killing a man named George Robinson. And at that time, I was not doing the series anymore, but I had grown to know them and their character and the way they did things. So obviously, at that point, I reached out to you guys. Let's start that night. I know y'all have told the story 100,000 times, but tell me what happened the night that George Robinson died.
Okay. All right. So early that morning, myself and my family were at church, Jackson Revival Center, under Pastor Jennifer Beard. So we're sitting in church and, giving our praise and honor to the good Lord above, and we get a SWAT activation. That SWAT activation said to meet at a location, so we can brief about an ongoing situation. All right. So I leave church, take my wife and my kids back home, and we meet at a location, the meet spot. Our SWAT commander was briefing us on an ongoing situation that Pastor Longino was opening the doors to his church. As he was opening the doors to his church, some young men in the neighborhood ran up on him and executed him, shot him in the head, took his keys, took his vehicle. I think robbery, homicide at the time. They were able to get a specific location to where the possible suspects were. All right. The SWAT commander at the time sent me, Desmond, and Lincoln to basically get eyes on the residents. So we were there. We got intel, structure of the house, cars, windows, doors, things of that nature. All right. So we relayed that information back to the SWAT commander, and we waited for the other SWAT guys to arrive on scene. So once they arrived on scene, we gathered a plan. We executed that plan, and we were able to get several individuals out of that residence and get them to robbery and homicides at JPD headquarters. So in the process, they gathered more information as to where more suspects could have possibly been. So search warrant, another location that was in the Washington D.C. area. Executed that search warrant, and multiple people were detained, taken to robbery and homicide for questioning as well. Keep in mind, this is a long process. We started early that morning. By the time we did the second search warrant, it's beginning to be night. Late in the afternoon. So we went to Piccadilly. Never forget, we went to Piccadilly. We sitting there, we eating, and a confidential informant of mine actually called and said that the guy who y'all looking for, Dog Pound, lives at this house on this street in Washington D.C. So they gave us Jones Avenue, and I think Washington Street. It was Jones and Washington, corner house.
Yeah, on the block.
Yeah, right there on the block, right there on the corner. So I called SWAT commander. I let him know. I say, listen, I just got a call. Suspect's supposed to be at this location. And he was like, let's spin up. Get everybody ready. We're going to meet. Never forget, we left Piccadilly, went to the Exxon service station right there on, 80 in Robinson. Mm-hmm. Get gas. And then we proceed to that location. We going down Highway 80. We make the turn on Valley Street, then make the first turn on Jones Avenue. Once we turn on Jones Avenue, you can see people literally everywhere. I mean, they were having parties on like both sides of the street. Barney comes across the radio and say, hey, let's talk to these people right here. Now, we still in the process of trying to figure out which house we supposed to be at. But in the process, we still trying to gather intel, because who knows? He could have been sitting, right there. So
another thing, it's something that we always did when we did do stuff like that. We would stop in an area and talk to people and see what intel we can get from people that's standing around, build a relationship with the people that's in the area. So,
I saw y'all do it 100 times.
Yeah. It's nothing illegal about stopping and talking to somebody.
Yeah. Right.
So, be get on the radio and say, let's stop and talk to these people here. Okay. Pull over. In the process of pulling over, I see a white vehicle parked on the side of the road. I see a female at the driver's side window. She has money inside of her hand, clutching. She then sticks her hand inside of the driver's side door with money still in her hand. All right. While we exit in the vehicle, Detective Barney goes one way, Lincoln goes one way. My main focus is right here in front of me.
Now, why is that? What are you seeing when you're watching this happen? You've got this experience in law enforcement. What are you seeing right there?
Hand-to-hand drugs transaction. Ain't no doubt about it. And the reason I say that is because I've been a narcotics detective for a long period of time. We have done just surveillance where we sit and watch. And that turns out to be true. So in this situation, she sticks her hand inside of the driver's side door, money in hand. When she turns and see us, she quickly pulls her hand back out of the window, money still in hand, and walks off very fast. So at that time, I'm close to the vehicle, but I'm giving her verbal commands from where I'm at. Like, hold on 1 second, stop. She ain't listening to nothing. She keep walking. She turns in front of this white Impala and goes into an adjacent yard to the right of us. Once she goes into the yard, it's dark. At this point, she disappears. But by this time, I'm at the back of Mr. Robinson's vehicle. He doesn't have any tint on the window, so you can see straight through. First thing I noticed was money literally scattered in his lap, on the console, on the passenger seat. When he turns and looks at me, say I'm him, he turns this way and he sees me, and then he immediately goes to reaching between the center console and the driver's seat. At this time, I'm like, I done been shot at point blank period, so I know how it feels. It's not a pleasant feeling. So I'm giving him verbal commands. At this time, I'm like, show me your hands. Show me your hands. What are you reaching for? At this time, the door hasn't even opened. I'm talking to him through the window. I'm like, show me your hands. Show me your hands. What are you doing? He's not listening to any verbal commands. He's still reaching. He turns his whole body and he's reaching. So I'm like, oh, this ain't a good situation. So they hear the commotion going on. At the time, Detective Lampley comes over and basically reaches in. I got him held here. Detective Lampley comes in, kind of nudges me forward a little bit, grabs him by the jacket, and we got him out of the vehicle. There wasn't no snatching, there wasn't no pulling, there wasn't nothing like that. But even before then, let me back up. I opened the door. Simply because, this is a dangerous situation. I'm already, too close for comfort. So to close the gap, I opened the door and I grabbed him with my left hand in the crease of his elbow and forearm. And I'm talking to him like, man, what are you reaching for? Stop reaching. And when he turns his whole body towards the center console, he pulls me halfway inside the door frame. Once he pulls me inside the door frame, that's when Lincoln came in and kind of nudged me forward and ducked his head, and we pulled him out.
Sure. So
once we pulled him out, Mr. Robinson, he's clutching. He's clutching at his midsection. He has his right hand closed tight, and he has his left hand over his right hand, and he's clutching at his midsection. So at this point, we started giving him verbal commands like, what are you doing? Stop resisting. Stop resisting. And he, we could tell he's trying to drop his body weight towards the ground.
You've described it before. You guys have said kind of like the way a kid who doesn't want to go with you will suddenly go limp.
Yeah, just go limp. Exactly. And like I explained before as well, if anybody has ever seen anybody get tased, like a taser certification, you typically have two officers one officer on each side, right? And once they deploy the taser, They just guide you to the ground. That's exactly how it was. I mean, he was still clutch. He was trying to use his body weight to get to the ground, so we just guided him to the ground. That there was no force on our part at all.
Right.
At all.
Now, let me interrupt you. Barney, what are you doing at this time?
Going back to the part where when I told him to get stop and let's talk to the people, that's when I saw two people standing to the left of them, and I'm walking over there talking to them, just having a discussion with them. I cannot remember what they told me. I got an idea, but after talking to them, that's when I can hear his commands. Still a lot of people in the yard where the car was parked in front of. You got about 6-7 people out there barbecuing. You know, you can obviously see phones out and stuff. So we really assumed that they were recording, in which they had the phones pointing towards us. You can see lights.
And usually they are recording.
Yeah,
like
so,
generally
not
when there's
a big
police
deal,
action now in any neighborhood, somebody has their camera out.
Yeah, but
Yes.
obviously they weren't doing nothing illegal. You know, they didn't bother them, didn't say nothing to them. You know, let them do what they did. Hearing his verbal commands, first thing I do was go to the back of the car so I can get a visual of the car, because him and Lincoln was in the doorway, or Lincoln was making his way around to the doorway. So I'm looking through the back of the car just to get a clear view, and all I can see is the guy's hand just sticking in between the center console and the front seat, driver's side seat, completely out of sight. Basically, you almost to his elbows. You know, so I was like, obviously he's not hiding anything. He's reaching, trying to get something. You know, if you're hiding something that deep, it's already hidden. You know, we can't even see your hand. Obviously, we couldn't see whatever you was putting down there. So assume that he's trying to retrieve a weapon, trying to see something to harm one of us. You know, I draw my weapon out, you know, just for cover as they attempt to get him out the car. When they did get him out the car, that's when he faced towards me. And when he faced towards me, he got his hand towards his waist area. So I'm thinking, I don't know if he had got something on his shirt or got something on his waistband, that he was trying to get something, but I can see that they couldn't get his hands to separate from his waist area. So I'm, you know, basically watching them at that point to try to see exactly what he was going to do in case he got something, because they couldn't see where his hands was. I'm looking at the site where his hands was. So I'm basically just covering from that area until he started going down to his knees, trying to, appear to me that he was trying to get away from them. Just go down, just do whatever he can to get away from them. Eventually, he went down onto the ground. That's when they continued to start pulling his hands back. And my thing, I'm still thinking he was going for a gun. At this point, I was really finna mace him. You know, so he actually stopped me. You know, like, you know, hold up. You know, I like, okay, whatever. You know, so I put my stuff back. Then we, you know, go back hands on. Still trying to wrestle his wrestle his hands from his waist area. Once he did get his hands from his waist area, you can see him moving it up to his face, but they still got it. They still got it, you know, a pretty good grip on it. We couldn't get it over there. So eventually I just, you know, you see him reaching down to his hands, and it appeared to be that's when he put something in his mouth, and once he got in his mouth and swallowed, he just stopped resisting, and that was over with. You know, we went no more struggle at that point.
Now, obviously, we know that during this time, at some point, George Robinson gets a scrape on his forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the problem came.
Yeah, right.
So that's where, as this thing unfolds, the district attorney decides that that's where apparently he was injured enough to die. So let me give some backstory here. After this happened, it was investigated by NBI, by JPD's internal affairs.
Not by NBI.
Oh, not by NBI.
Not
okay.
NBI.
Oh, that's right. So JPD's internal affairs, and then the FBI came in because, of course, if police,
that was they investigated the civil rights part of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And if that's the case, they're going to find it.
Yeah.
If there's a civil rights violation, we have seen in the last year or two, they will take you down.
Yes.
So at that point, you guys have been nervous this whole time because you knew you were accused of these things, but you think you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what happens. When did you find out that this district attorney, who was not the original district attorney, it started with Robert Schuler Smith, who declined to prosecute at the time. And I think he kind of did that thing where he just was letting it ride because he knew that there wasn't a case here. But he was.
I think that's where a lot of confusion at that point, where with the DA's position in this case. The DA position in this case wasn't necessary to prosecute this case. The DA position in this case was to act as MBI, to act as an outside investigative department, and they didn't do that. Their job wasn't to just take a case that we presented to them and prosecute it, which that is their normal job. Is they get a case that we investigate and they prosecute the information that we get them. Their job in this case was to act as an outside investigation, and they were supposed to investigate this themselves because we couldn't investigate as JPD and FBI investigating at a civil level. So they were supposed to act as a law enforcement investigation to investigate this and gather information on their own, not from nothing we gave them. They were supposed to act as an outside agency, investigate this case, and use their information that they gathered from this. There was no information that was given from them. There was no report done from them. There was no, whatever witness statements they did, they didn't do a report on the witness statement. When they talked to us, it wasn't a report. We wasn't read our rights. It was what they did. What I see, what they did was totally, out of line as an investigation department. I being involved in investigative with MBI, you know the guidelines and stuff that they go through. That's not what they went through. They didn't act as an outside investigation. They took what was said from them from Facebook. That's where it started from information from Facebook, and they ran with that. You're not going to find one report where they say they talked to a witness. You're not going to find one report where they say they went to the scene. You're not going to find one report where they say they went to the hospital. You're not going to find one report where they say they saw the body. You're not going to find one report where they say they spoke to anybody, where they gathered any information. It was the only piece of information that was given to us in court was a field release form and a medical paper. And now, how many murder cases have you ever seen where you got a field release and you got medical documents?
Sure.
That's it.
And that's the thing. So y'all are accused of, at first, it comes out that these guys have beat George Robinson with a mag light.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that didn't ring true to me because I had ridden with them for so long, and I knew that they didn't use mag lights anymore. They have those little not pin lights, but
the small lights.
Little small lights that you just hold up right here and you click on the back, and it's really not any bigger than a roll of pennies or something like that.
Right.
So when did you hear about the charges against y'all, and what was your reaction?
So,
first it was the not the charges.
When we got placed on administrative leave.
Yeah, that was off
the
news.
So when the coroner at the time, Sharon Grissom Stewart, when she ruled the case a homicide, we were immediately put on administrative leave with pay. And at the time we found that out, we were in Greenwood or Greenville, something like that, picking up patrol cars for JPD, sitting down at Longhorn eating dinner before we headed back. And again, we found out we were on administrative leave through Facebook. We didn't have a clue. And we saw on Facebook that we were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. And another thing that I want to point out is when we found out who certain attorneys was and getting involved in all that, we went and specifically asked for the FBI to investigate this case because we knew, because of who the players were involved, we knew that something wasn't going to be done right. So we requested that the FBI look at this case.
Sure.
And when they looked into it, they found no wrongdoing. I went against my attorney's advice. My attorneys told me, don't talk to nobody until, without us being present. Mm-hmm. They came and knocked on my door. And I just about said, would you like a cup of coffee while we talk?
Right. Well, and in the end, of course, they found that you guys hadn't done anything.
Absolutely.
Let's backtrack for a second. In y'all's job, you were narcotics officers.
Mm-hmm.
You were responsible for getting most of the drugs off the street that were gotten off the street during that time.
Mm-hmm.
You were the ones that knew the drug dealers, the names that were out there, that kind of thing. But also when you arrest someone, y'all were the ones that did the interviews, and y'all often heard names of bigger players.
Yes.
Obviously, for a lot of reasons we can't say, but you heard some big names during this time.
Oh, of course.
So when this started to happen, did you have questions about whether this was coming from some of the big names that you heard because they recognized what was happening out there, that you guys were disrupting some of what was going on?
So for me personally, I feel like it originated from some big names. But then even when the big name people saw the facts of the case, I think they bagged off of it. But by that time, it had been handed down to other big names.
Mm-hmm.
And they took it and ran with it. Robert Chula Smith looked at this case as a district attorney office. He told me and him personally, I wasn't finna prosecute this case because there's no case to prosecute. Y'all did nothing wrong. So you tell me, how is it that one prosecutor says this, or one district attorney says this, and now when a newly district attorney is brought in, now we have indictments flowing around.
So let's skip to that part. I mean, obviously there was a lot of stress in between there. You know, we're worried because we've got this new DA and all of a sudden there's rumblings that this is going to happen. Then all of a sudden y'all are on administrative leave. Then the next thing you know, like, this is actually going to trial. So let me bring in Springer for this. Francis, you were their attorney from what point? When did you come on the scene here?
Shortly after the incident happened, there was another high-ranking official at JPD that I had represented before in employment action. He called me with concern. He said, there's something going on within JPD that's not being handled right. And I got some details from him. And fortunately, these guys were members of the Police Benevolent Association, so I was able to talk to them and talk to the officers and get the PBA on board. So fortunately, these guys didn't have to sell everything they own to provide their criminal defense and civil defense. And we were able to parallel this. And I talked to them about it enough to know either one of two things. Either they need to go to Hollywood and they'll win an Oscar if they're lying because the story's perfect, or they're telling the truth, which is more logical. They're telling the truth. And based on that and on the evidence as it came across, I saw very clearly that there's no way to say that any of these officers killed George Robinson, either negligently, purposefully, or whatever. So why was it indicted? You know, I don't know. I mean, I know the indictments that they have don't have photographs in them like we've seen recently with some pretty compelling evidence against certain people.
Right.
But the evidence were kind of boilerplate. The indictments were boilerplate. And fortunately, and a lot of people say, well, Desmond Barney and Legal Lampley, they just threw theirs out. No. Their case was dismissed after the state put on its case. The state went through the whole thing and rested. And at that time, we realized they had not proven anything against either of those officers, so we moved for a dismissal. Judge Peterson is a jewel for Hinds County, and I don't just say that lightly. She saw what was going on, and she said, I'm not having any part of this. This case is dismissed. So they walked free, as they should have. They should have never been indicted. But unfortunately, Anthony was in another courtroom, and that case went to trial.
Well, and let me ask you this while we're on the legal side of it.
Sure.
Why were they not all tried together? Doesn't it have to be the defense that asks to separate those things?
The defense can ask to separate if they're indicted together. Why they were indicted separately, I have no idea. It's possibly the practice of the office.
Normal?
Not normally, because when you do that, you have to expect 3 different trials. So that ties up the district attorney's office 3 times when it should be 1 time. Now, they do have the right, had they been indicted together, they could have had the right to separate. But ironically and conversely, we tried to get all of these combined into Judge Peterson's courtroom to go with 1 trial, because Barney and Lampley were tried together. They chose to go together. But the other trial judge would not release Fox to Judge Peterson's courtroom, so he had a separate trial altogether.
Well, and at this point, we have not said the name of that judge. That was Judge Adrian Wooten. And I'm going to go ahead and say it because from the beginning, to me, as a reporter who has worked on crime and courts and whatever for years, her actions did not make sense. And I want to say that I am calling her out in the same way that she called me out in court when she accused me of not being a real real reporter in front of the attorneys. And Francis saw that himself. So the fact is, at some point, Adrienne Wooten will not release your case, Fox.
Right.
And she is holding you. Your bond was $250,000, while
$350,000.
$350,000,
Yes.
while y'all's was just $100,000. Correct. Talk to me about, when did you know you had a problem in Judge Wooten's courtroom?
Well, I realized I had a problem in her courtroom when she set a $350,000 bond. When it came as a recommendation from the district attorney that all three of us get $100,000 bond. Once we got that, once I got that $350,000 bond, I started asking questions like, why is my bond so high? And, the Honorable Judge Peterson went with what was asked of her from the district attorney, which was $100,000 for them two. So we go down, we get booked in, and we catching all kind of sand just to get me released. Like when we went in and got processed.
When they asked for his bond to be dropped down, she emailed her back and said she will entertain $250,000.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It was a joke,
I entertain it. $250,000. So, long story short, we go in and get processed. Barney and Lincoln is out like that. Well, I'm still sitting here. We waiting on her court processor and all that, and it's getting later and later and later and later. And then she comes with, well, I'm not seeing anything else for the rest of the day, so you're gonna have to sit there over the weekend, and I will see you come Monday, and I want him in my courtroom. This is what we were told. Mm-hmm. She made the recommendation that I stay over the weekend. Come Monday was to be transported to her courtroom with a red jumpsuit on, shackled up. At this point, I'm like,
something's not right.
Yeah. I'm like, well, why is she doing this to me?
Well, and the other thing is, too, Hinds County is known for giving low bond to people accused of murder.
Absolutely.
We've seen people walk on $10,000 bond accused of killing other people.
Yes.
So this especially felt to me, and again, objectively, yes, I knew these guys. Yes, they were my friends, but I have watched the procedure and the behavior of judges in Hinds County for a long time.
Right.
This did not feel right. Francis, what did it feel like to you?
The indicting them separately really created a lot of problems. And to give all judges credit, when they're setting a bond, they're given the facts by the state. The defense hasn't had a chance to lay anything forward. So just on its face, you can't say a judge is irrational with a bond. However, in Hinds County, it's pretty much known what's going on all over the courthouse. So judges try to be consistent. But in this case, this one wasn't consistent for whatever reason. I can't say why because I have no idea. But fortunately, I think the sheriff was able to help, and another jewel for Hinds County, as far as I'm concerned, to kind of move it forward and to get a bond so he wouldn't have to make arrangements for a police officer to be in jail over the weekend. So things kind of did help like that, but it's very, very unfair. And actually, talking back to the refusal to combine the cases, the district attorney's office made that first motion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They actually asked for them to be combined into Judge Peterson's courtroom, and that was denied.
Interesting.
And with his bond, the problem was that she was acting as if she didn't set a bond. He had a bond that was set, and she was having us believe that he didn't have a bond until it took somebody that was downtown in the sheriff department to look and say, hey, he have a bond. He we can't hold him because he has a bond. But she was making it to the point where we believe that he didn't have a bond and she's going to see him Monday. But it was already a bond set.
Right.
So at the point when they knows the bond was set, at that now we can get him out. But her making us believe that he didn't have a bond just so we wouldn't post a bond for him.
Yeah.
Sure. Now let's go to court right quick. You guys go to trial. You and Lincoln go to trial. During that, the state's what we would call star witnesses,
Mm-hmm.
they testify.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about those witnesses.
Okay. Oh, I don't know. So much with them. I guess starting off, first off, the main guy, the one that Fox actually arrested, within a year prior to this incident, he said that I was standing next to him when the entire thing was going on. You know, that I was standing next to him, which I wasn't. He actually, when this was going on, he was standing at the grill with his phone out and his flashlight on, and I was with Fox, you know, attempting to do this George Robinson. That was the first lie. He also stated that when they asked him how did he see it if he was on the other side of the car, he said he could see under the car. When they brought to his attention that it was a curb next to the car and it was above the bottom of the car, he couldn't see under the car, he said he could see through the car. You know, so this is the constant changing up of your stories, but then you want to say our story changed.
And let's clarify. You said that witness was one, Anthony, that you had been dealing in a case with him.
He was in jail at the time.
Okay, so this guy, their star witness was somebody that I put in, well, he put himself in federal prison after he got caught with about 8 felony charges that consisted of cocaine, meth, marijuana, different types of various appeals, 2 firearms by convicted felon. He was placed in jail by me, and they still used him as their star witness.
You also had a witness who basically her story just didn't make sense. And, and what was interesting to me is the way she described who she thought was you.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So the other witness described me as 6'3", bald head with a Rick Ross beard.
How tall are you?
I am 5'10", maybe 5'11" if I put my boots on.
What's the longest your beard's ever been?
The length that it is right now.
What's the shortest your hair's ever been?
This short.
Yeah.
I've never had a bald head. I've never had a Rick Ross beard, and I'm definitely not 6'2", 6'3".
Now, during this investigation, I should add that JPD also put out a reward to anyone that could offer video evidence of this alleged attack on George Robinson by these officers. $5,000. Now, the streets don't talk sometimes, but they definitely would come out with video against a police officer if they had it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it started with $2,500. It started with $2,500, and nobody came out. Nobody came out to say that they did anything wrong, other than everybody was. Eventually, you figure out these guys are kin or some kind of related to George Robinson in some kind of manner. So it started with $2,500, and then they decided, okay, this is not working. Nobody's saying nothing about these officers. Let's up it. You know, so they went to the council and they got it up to $5,000, which is not normal. I haven't seen that done since I've been a police officer.
Yeah, not by the city anyway.
No.
So that said, nobody would come out that had a story that actually tracked with the accusations.
No.
And from our understanding, even when we were waiting on all this to happen, we was constantly in contact with the DA. We still was putting cases on. We still was going to grand jury.
Yeah.
And the DA said itself, they won't even come down and talk to us.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I can't even get them to come down and talk to me.
That's right.
Talking about these witnesses. You know, so where he got his story from is still unbelievable to me.
So, okay, now you guys have been to trial, and she has thrown it out because we've already seen that these witnesses are not credible.
Well, can I piggyback off of that real quick? So, just how non-credible are these witnesses? So, during their trial, one of the ADAs asked one of the witness to pick out, is Anthony Fox in the courtroom? So he looks around, and he looks at another ADA, an attorney for the state, who's against us.
A separate table than us.
A separate table from where they're sitting at. And said, yeah, that's him right there.
Sure did.
Let the record show he identified David Lindsay,
he
the assistant
identified
district attorney.
An assistant district attorney as me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even in the courtroom at the time. Not only that, you got other witnesses that pointed out, Lincoln as Barney, Barney as Lincoln. On top of that, one of them got pointed out as the bailiff that was standing behind them.
Yeah, when she asked them to identify me,
That's right.
the female, was it
Demetri?
Connie? I thought it was Connie.
Oh, yeah, it was Connie.
Yeah, female pointed out the court bailiff because that's the only person she saw in the room with a uniform.
With a uniform on.
So she see whatever officer she saw in the room, that's who she pointed out as a suspect that was involved.
Right.
My understanding, there was never an investigation done on him, but as a suspect. But
right.
Even though there was eyewitness testimony.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she's saying. She's saying that he's dead because she was considering who did what. Even when she asked, when it got down to when they asked her to give details on the incident, the only thing she was saying was Fox this, Fox that. And then when she was asked, okay, what did Fox do? Well, it was too far off. I couldn't see that well. It was dark.
And let me say, Therese, we don't think David Lindsay had anything to do with it.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
She was just, the witness
bailiff.
was just picking out somebody that they saw or
Right.
whatever. And the interesting thing, back to the reward money, as far as we know, none of those witnesses collected the reward money.
No.
And back to the investigation, Jackson Internal Affairs really didn't investigate this. Some of the commanding officers asked some questions, but then they were kind of directed away from it. And a lot of that had to do with city administration, and
Yes.
that's really what let this whole thing really go. And that's the sad thing for George Robinson, because when he went to the motel after this, before he succumbed to the brain bleed, there were 3 or 4 people on video going in and out of that room. And the FBI reported that his girlfriend, who was in the room, made the statement that when he started convulsing, and what he was doing was basically locking up, as you do with a brain injury, he pulled money from his pockets and threw it. So we don't know if something happened there, that there was missing money that nobody ever knew about, because nobody ever investigated that.
Sure.
And the FBI was doing the civil rights violation. You can't, as a police officer, murder somebody without violating their civil rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's just absolutely no way that the feds would have not prosecuted had they found something. Matter of fact, the U.S. attorney at the time, Mike Hurst, sent me an unsolicited letter after these gentlemen were indicted saying, we just want you to know the United States has found no wrongdoing. We're not prosecuting.
Right.
We're not
Right.
going forward with anything. So this was just one of the worst miscarriages of justice I've ever seen.
Well, and so obviously we don't have a whole lot of time left to go into the trial, but I think my biggest takeaway at the trial, there were so many things that happened that felt wrong. You can start with the fact that every time the prosecution had an objection, it was sustained. And every time the defense had one, it was overruled. The money that you saw on the front seat was not allowed. Nobody was allowed to talk about that. The drugs that he allegedly swallowed, every time y'all would start to bring up drugs, they would object and it would be sustained.
Yep. Furthermore, just to add to that, there was, to my understanding, a intern that's the son of one of the attorneys for the civil case for them. He was in the courtroom. My wife saw him giving Connie Bolton, or whatever her name is, one of the witnesses, head signals how to answer the question.
Right.
So whenever she gets stuck, she would look at him and he would nod. And that's how she would answer. My wife saw that. We brought that to the attention of the judge. Not only did my wife see it, but her bailiff saw it as well.
She said she saw it also, the judge.
The judge, she did. She did. So my wife raised her hand on the stand and testified to the judge. This is what I saw. This is what's going on. The bailiff had to stand before her. And he also said, yeah, I saw him doing the head nod motions, but I didn't know if he was falling asleep or what. But I did see the head nod motion. Was he kicked out of the courtroom? No.
Mm-mm.
He was told to move to another location inside of the courtroom so she can better see him. Now that's possible. That's witness tampering.
And I should add also police officers were asked to leave
Yes.
the courtroom because they were wearing uniforms.
Oh yeah.
So it was like y'all weren't really allowed to have a show of support
That's it.
in uniform. Another thing that I found very interesting throughout was that, and Francis, we'll let you kind of weigh in on this. 4 or 5 different medical witnesses, not one shred of evidence that you guys had anything to do with George Robinson's death. Talk about that, Francis.
That's probably the most interesting thing, and to me, one of the most concerning things on the Court of Appeals decision, which overturned this verdict, is the minority decision thought it should be overturned but go back to trial because there was eyewitness testimony. The medical evidence was discounted in the fact that none of the doctors, even Dr. Levon, the state's medical examiner, could not conclusively say George Robinson died from anything that happened with any of these officers, including Anthony. And our experts, which we had some really good experts, local and from afar, they looked at all of the evidence and said that most of the injury there was probably from the treatment that he received at the hospital, because he was there almost 3 days before he unfortunately passed away. And there was just so many inconsistencies there. One of the paramedics testified when he responded to the scene, when Anthony called an ambulance for this gentleman, he saw 1 abrasion. When the ambulance responded to the hotel, 3 abrasions were reported. And I specifically asked that paramedic, I said, did you miss that? He said, no, there was 1 abrasion. So there was just so much reasonable doubt with this case. I would love for somebody to talk to some of the jurors and just find out what was going on in their mind, because there was so much reasonable doubt in this case.
Well, and I'll address that as well. I have put out word that I would love to speak with a juror, but for some reason they are very quiet. There are the problem with a case like this is there are stories. I think that some of the powers that be would probably have heart attacks if they knew some of the people that have talked about what they know about this case.
Oh yeah.
Of course, since it's not on the record, we can't get into it because we don't want to get sued. And we have Francis here to stop us from doing that also.
I'm not saying there was any wrongdoing, but it would be interesting to find out why the jury found what it did with all the evidence that's there.
Well,
and presented.
One thing that I think you and I can agree on, and you guys too, is that in a case like this, it has so many questions. The jury goes to the jury room, around 10 a.m., and they're done at 5 o'clock on the dot.
Yep.
And they return with a verdict of manslaughter on a second-degree murder case, and they're crying.
Yep.
Now, if you know anything, I assume most of the people that watch and listen to this podcast are probably crime junkies. You guys know as well as I do that reeks. There's something wrong there. Anthony, I remember how I felt sitting in the hallway when I heard that they were coming back. Barney, I think you and I were in the same hallway. I think we were all kind of in the same place. I heard they were coming back right there at 5 o'clock, and I thought, oh no. What did you think?
Well, when I saw them coming into the courtroom, and I could physically see that a couple of the jurors had been emotional. You could tell that they had been crying. You could see that on their faces. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm in trouble. I thought the worst at that point. I'm like, that ain't normal. And then when I started seeing a ton of bailiffs come in, and then they made their announcement of speech, I was like, yeah, something ain't right. Something ain't right at all.
Hey, before that, Fox, I don't want to forget about this. It was one jury that actually get off of the case.
Yes.
It was one jury that told the judge that she didn't feel comfortable doing this, and she wanted to get off of the case, and the judge would not allow her to get off the case.
That's right.
I don't remember which one it was, but it was one.
Jury number 7.
He remembers. But it was one that actually get off of the case, and she would not allow her to get off the case.
Well, and let me throw this in. Another anomaly in this case involved me. At some point, one of the first days I was there, I was told that I couldn't come back in the courtroom if I didn't have media identification, which I had to go back to my office and get. And I had a Mississippi Press Association identification card, which was taken back to the judge so that she could review it. And basically, then I was told I could be there. My phone was taken away twice throughout the trial while everybody else had their phones out. And at some point, the judge says, if there are any members of the media, please come forward. Now, the media had not shown up. I was the only member of the media that was in the courtroom throughout this case until the day of the verdict. And so, of course, she knew who she was calling out. So I stood up and I went to the front, at which point she asked me who gave me permission to be in her courtroom, why I hadn't filled out a camera request form. I didn't bring a camera. You don't have to do that. She instructed me that I needed to do that. She told me that she had heard that I'd talked to one of her bailiffs, and what I had done was ask him if he could find out from her what the deal was with the gag order that she had said she was putting on the courtroom, because as a reporter who has to write about it, I kind of needed to know that. And she told me I was not to speak to any officer of her court, which she's not allowed to tell me to do. She can tell them not to talk to me, but she can't tell me not to talk to them. Prior to this, she had called all the attorneys to the bench and told them that I was not a real reporter. And so they weren't to talk to me. That was both defense and prosecution. And while she was talking to me, she did have on sunglasses or thick glasses and a mask. And I couldn't hear her very well. So I kept asking her to speak up so that the whole courtroom could hear what she was saying to me, because it is unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented. The things that when this has happened in history, it's made the news because you can't censor the press. And long story short, when I reached out to other journalists in the area, because my biggest problem through this case was the question of conflict of interest, but I owned my own business and I didn't have somebody that could report on this case. I tried to hire other journalists to report on the case for me, and they wouldn't get involved. When this came up with the judge, I tried to hire another journalist to write the story, as we would have done at the Clarion Ledger if it had happened to any other journalist in the metro area, not just one of our own. I could not get anyone to touch that. Now, that happens too. So we know that the media is being discouraged, and we did hear later on that a family member of the civil attorney on this case was discouraging members of the media, saying that you were guilty,
Right.
that there was nothing to see, don't even bother
Don't
to
even
come.
go. Yep.
So through all this, there are all these different pieces that made no sense. And then the jury says guilty.
Yeah. But before we get to that, I want to backtrack if I can. So I want to go back to a statement that came out of the district attorney's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on 3 different occasions.
Mm-hmm.
We went to go meet with him so we can personally tell him exactly what happened after we found out this could be going to trial. On 3 separate occasions, he said, I've spoken to all of the witnesses and I know ain't none of them credible. That's something that stuck with me to this day. I spoke with all of the witnesses and I know ain't none of them credible. But yet you proceed with this indictment. One of his ADAs, outside of the courthouse while their trial was going on, me and another one of my attorneys see him on the steps. We talking, they're talking, and I step in and I'm like, "Hey Guthrie, hey,
You
hey,
can
sir."
say his name.
Oh
It's
yeah,
out
Kurt,
there.
Kurt
Yeah.
Guthrie.
Kurt
Hey,
Guthrie.
Kurt. Hey, Kurt. You know you're dealing with 3 innocent officers, right? He looked me in my face and said, "Yeah, that might be the case, but I'm just a pawn. I do what I'm told to do."
And that was witnessed by other people.
One of my other attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
He said that. I'm just a pawn. I do what I'm told to do. Another situation, okay, now you have basically said we murdered this guy. How many times have you heard of a district attorney coming to you saying, "Hey, listen, if you plead guilty to 2nd-degree murder, I can guarantee you no jail time." I told my attorneys before any of this got this far, I said, I'm not taking a plea deal for anything because I did nothing wrong. So I'm not taking a plea for nothing. They came with the first plea. So say we give you a plea agreement to 2nd-degree murder, guarantee no jail time. So no, absolutely not. I didn't do anything wrong. Why would I plea? When I said no, they came back. Ask him, let's do culpable negligent manslaughter. I can guarantee no jail time. Told him ain't no way. I'm not doing that. Well, let's try aggravated assault. How about we do aggravated assault? No jail time. I told him absolutely not. This last deal is going to blow your mind. You already know. But for those that don't know, so after I got done testifying, which the whole entire trial was live streamed, but coincidentally, when it was my turn to testify, to tell the world my side of the story, it got cut off.
Yep.
Simply because of one of the ADAs go to the judge and show her a Facebook message that my wife put on there that basically said something to the degree of it's corruption in the Hinds County judicial system or something like that. Something to that effect.
Something that's been said
A million
hundreds
of times.
of dozens of other times. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Millions of times. So we couldn't get there 8 o'clock quick enough. She run up there to the judge and show her a Facebook post where then she cuts the live stream. Ironically, the day I have to testify.
Mm-hmm.
And Barney. Barney testifies first. I testify after him. We couldn't make it back to the attorney office quick enough because now it's a whole bunch of doubt running in their head like, oh, he might get off. Mm-hmm. So this ADA contacts my attorney again and says, just come up with a dream plea. Just come up with a dream plea. Of course, no jail time, but just come up with a dream plea.
Mm-hmm.
And
like
I run it up
you
the
set
chains.
the terms.
Yeah, whatever y'all want,
Yeah.
whatever you need, whatever. Just tell them to plead guilty.
To anything.
To anything.
Pick something.
Pick
Jaywalking.
something. Yeah. Abusive language. Just plead guilty to something.
Mm-hmm.
How can you? That's a slap. That should be a slap in the face to the Robinson family.
Yes.
That man specifically said, just come up with a dream plea. But we accused of body slamming somebody head first.
Well,
Right.
and also, when, like you said, when we did have the meeting with them, they also had a meeting with me and my attorneys, and asked us to tell the story about what happened right there. And so I went on to tell the story. After I got finished telling the story to him, which he said he knows the witnesses aren't credible, and they won't even cooperate with him. So after I got finished telling my story, he said, okay, look here. Now, I understand your story. I see what you had to say. And, I understand your relationship with Fox. But if you just tell me that you didn't see anything, just say you didn't see anything, and you don't have to worry about this indictment. You don't have to worry about this charge. We can just take this all off the record. And you won't even have to worry about going to trial, getting charged, anything. Obviously that didn't happen. I just told, hey, what happened is what happened. I'm, stick with my story. You trying to make me lie. You're like, well, the offer still stands. Even after that, they still was trying to give me that offer. Just say you didn't see anything, and you won't be indicted or you won't be charged. Even after they charged me, they were still offering, hey, if you cooperate with us, you can you accept a misdemeanor, some kind of misdemeanor or something with no jail time, and throughout the thing, and eventually they offered me again that just obviously just cooperate with us, and you don't have to worry about this. We can still take this away. This throughout the trial, but before that, like I said, before we even got charged, before we got indicted, and when we decided, like one thing that we didn't do, we never hid anything from them. Anytime they actually talk to us, anytime the feds actually talk to us, anytime the internal affairs actually talk to us, whether our lawyers were present or not, we always spoke with them. And one thing we did forgot to talk about is when we had the meeting with the mayor, where they called us and had 20 people around us to hear the whole story, where that's when the story finally changed. But we'll go back to that. So like I said, they was offering me just to say I didn't see anything, as if something to help them, like, oh, that ain't what he said ain't happened. Officer Barney said he didn't see anything, so it seemed like that's the game plan that they was going from the beginning. And when I didn't go with their game plan, they went ahead and charged me. And the funny thing about them charging me, even though I gave my correct story, what I was involved in making an arrest, I was involved going hands-on, I was involved in putting cuffs on him. That was my story that I gave them, not their witness's story. Their witness's story said I was standing with him, or I wasn't there, or I was somebody else. So only my statement gave them the reason to say what I did. They didn't go off of my statement, what I did, though. They still charged me with assaulting him. So how can you go either your witnesses say I wasn't there, or my statement say I was there and we didn't assault him. So where did they get the part where I was the one, or either one of us? Where did you get that story from? Unless you made it up yourself, and you didn't get on the stand and say that. So where did you actually get the story from that one of us assaulted him? Because your witness say one thing, say I wasn't there. I say I was there, but I didn't say I did this. So how are you putting this together? Where are you piecing this from?
So we have so many pieces that, and we're getting close to the end. We can continue for a little bit longer, but it's just about time to wrap up. And we still have so much of this story left to tell.
I got something to point
Well,
out.
he did really talk about. He stopped. He did stop when he was actually giving the story what happened. He stopped there when we got the cuffs on it. But it's
so much more.
I would say go further into the actual what happened afterward, releasing him,
hit
going
some
to
bullet
the hotel,
points of what happened
being
with
on
that.
video at the hotel, people coming in and out of the hotel.
So before I go there, I want to make something perfectly clear as well. I know a lot of people might not like him. I didn't know him up until this point, but I have to say, we were informed that we were about to get railroaded.
Yeah.
Yes, you were.
Polo.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna call his name. Polo.
Napoleon Edwards.
Polo reached out to us, and like I said, I knew of him, didn't know him, but he reached out to us, and he said, "Man, we got mutual friends, XYZ. Y'all are about to get railroaded." He provided text messages as well as audio with Jody.
That's the district attorney.
The district attorney, yes, saying that. Man, I want to talk about these officers XYZ. I know, we can't really talk about it, but can I use it? And I wish we had that. You got it?
What he said was, what Polo actually said, that the district attorney called him and said that 3 officer lives are about to be ruined.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
That's what he said, that the DA told him, that it's going to be 3 officer lives that are about to be ruined, and I'm not supposed to be telling you this.
Yep.
So do not say anything about this until after the indictments come out, because he wasn't supposed to tell him about any indictments, which our indictments were sealed, and he cannot give that information out to anybody until our indictments are unsealed.
That's right. And I wanted to read it verbatim because he acknowledges in the text message that he wasn't supposed to tell him this information, but yet he told him this information.
Right. Well, and for what it's worth, so we will come back to, basically what happened after you guys cuffed Robinson.
So, and I want to make this perfectly clear. The scratch that he sustained that was as big as a thumbnail by the testimony of AMR, he sustained on his own.
When he was trying to get
the dope in his mouth.
Drugs, yeah.
Oh no, when he was trying to get the alleged drugs in his mouth, he was this way and turned this way as he brought his hands to his mouth. Once he put whatever was in his hands in his mouth, he released, completely stopped resisting. We put handcuffs on him. We stood him up. When we stood him up, we made eye contact, and he was like, "Fox, man, I'm sorry, bro."
Yeah, you guys knew each other.
We knew each other. The man know my family. I've been knowing him for a long time. I didn't have any reason to do this to this man. Number one, you can tell he's up there in age. Number two, though I didn't know him at who he was at the time of the stop, I still knew him. I knew him.
Well, and I've seen you guys work with people. I mean, and you knew him through the course of your job.
Yes.
Because he was in the drug trade
Yes.
and you were a narcotics officer.
Yes.
But also, I've seen you guys work with people on the street, and and I never saw y'all get violent.
No.
And I rode with y'all for several months and saw at one night we actually got shot at.
Yes.
And you dealt with the kid.
Absolutely.
And did not get violent. You yelled in his face.
I did.
But
I did. And that's after being shot at. That's after being shot at. I still held my composure and talked to this young man with some sense.
Right. So AMR comes, they check him out, they don't find anything. Meanwhile, what is George Robinson saying about AMR?
Okay.
When they first got there, now when AMR first got on scene, they walked past him.
Yeah, they didn't know he was hurt.
Yeah, they walked directly past him like it's where me and you are. They just walked past him, and we like, they asked us, what are we here for? And they like, we just want y'all to come out. And they were like, what's wrong with him?
Yeah,
because you couldn't actually see, like some of the witness said he was bleeding all over. You don't have even when he made it to the hotel room. I guess we can get to that later.
Yeah,
but no blood was on him. He wasn't dripping blood. Even before AMR got there, they call us evil and criminals and all this. Before AMR got there, he was cold. And then like, hey, when his guys came over, hey, can we put a coat on him? Now, they didn't say that we told them to get on the ground and get away. And he testified when he asked, hey, he's cold. Can I put a jacket on him? Go ahead.
Yeah. Put it on.
It's no big deal. So it wasn't like he was getting treated like a criminal. He never got in the backseat of a police car.
Nope.
Never got in the backseat of a police car. Somebody say he was handcuffed to the front of a
bump of the barricade. Yeah, tank.
Yeah. Somebody say he was handcuffed to the front of a tank. Never was handcuffed to anything. He had handcuffs behind his back. Far as it went, when AMR came to treat them, whatever they asked for, they got. We didn't hinder them in any kind of way. We didn't stop them or anything. We actually, whatever he needs you to do, that's what y'all do it.
That's right.
Sure.
So at that time, they saw, and everybody that saw that listed it as a minor abrasion.
And he kept saying, I don't
want no. He kept, man, I don't need no effing
what they here for.
Ambulance.
Yeah.
Why are they here? He told the medics that. He told them, he said, man, I don't need y'all. What y'all doing here?
It took
I just want to go home.
Tell him, hey, let them
just
look
let them look at it, man. It ain't nothing but a scratch. Let them look at it. And he finally was like, all right, Fox. And he, like I said, when we stood him up, he basically, he was like, man, it was just a tab I swallowed, man, because I ain't want to go back to jail. He had an ankle monitor on from a previous arrest that had something to do with drugs and a gun. So, yeah, we stood him up, saw the abrasions, called AMR. They looked at him. I wrote him a fear release citation simply because the failure to obey law enforcement officer and resisting arrest. Because though he wasn't trying to physically fight us, he was still resisting, the arrest. So those were
it was also going back and forth between destruction of evidence, which he could have been charged with destruction of evidence. Because obviously he ate something, we giving him orders not to eat that. He ate it. Obviously, we consider that to be evidence.
Right.
And we like, what, man, it ain't no big deal. Because, we just going to charge him for what he did. Mm-hmm. We don't have the evidence. That's not go stacking charges on this man.
That's right.
Like, he's some kind of animal or something. That's something we decided not to even do, just stack several charges on there, which we could have done.
That's right. And we didn't want to prolong it, any further because we were there for another objective. And that was to find the killers of Pastor Longino. So after I give him his fear release, he signs off on it. And again, as he's walking to his car, he's like, Fox, man, I'm sorry, bro. I was like, Killer, you ain't got to apologize no more, bro. It's all good.
And
just
let me
don't
interrupt.
do that no more.
His street name was Killer.
Yeah.
And if you look in the court documents, he actually had served time for manslaughter at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he wrote his name on the
fear release. It's on the fear release as alias.
And that's another question. A lot of people had questions too about the fear release. Like, why would y'all fear release? Why wouldn't y'all take him to jail? But the reason that he was fear released is because in the jail system, they had a piece of paper they printed out. They're not taking anybody unless it's a felony or a shoplifter or a domestic.
Sure.
That's right.
So he couldn't be taken to jail, but he still had to be charged, which a fear release is basically a ticket. In the court, they tell him this is your charge and appear on court this day. So just to explain why he was fear released and clear air on that part.
Sure. Okay, well, I have a question because we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes and we still have so much to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So next Thursday is Thanksgiving. Do you guys want to come back in 2 weeks? And
Whenever
we'll do a part 2.
We come back tomorrow.
Whenever you need. That's whenever, because it is. Man, this case is so complex that it'll take a month to get out everything that took place.
Tell about the rest. Him at the hotel though. At least that part.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking because we've got to do that, but we've also got to talk about the appeal, or not the appeals, but we got to talk about all the legal process.
Sure. The honorable Lynn Fitch.
That's right. So if you're watching and you're not familiar with this, and I haven't even started to look at the comments beyond where we are here. Usually we read them and we answer questions. I did see somebody say the media should get involved. Let me go ahead and tell you, if you go to darkhorsepressnow.com and you look in the search bar and you type in Anthony Fox, you'll see everything that we covered from the beginning of this. Now, some of this was when I was at WLBT, and I'll go ahead and say that I was telling them that this was not what it looks like, that these accusations were not real, that there's something wrong here. And I was kind of being blown off. And that said, I mean, I'm not saying anybody was doing anything they shouldn't. It's just nobody was listening to me. So when I left and I started Dark Horse Press, we covered this story from the beginning to the end, as far as the legal process goes. There are places where I didn't cover it because of the conflict of interest. I couldn't get into a lot of the emotional, interpersonal stuff because we've been friends for so long.
Yes.
So that said, you'll find everything you need to there. The media, while we're smaller, we're not one of the big guys. We did very much cover this case, this trial. The other thing is, so tonight, and it's actually probably going on right now, WLBT has this story. So look for it online. I'm sure we'll all find it and post it. They actually finally addressed the story and did a comprehensive interview with you.
Yes.
And also spoke with the district attorney and some of the other people. I understand that they interviewed him before. Another thing we'll talk about next time, his indictment. The district attorney has been indicted on taking bribes, and he made some statements about how he chooses who gets indicted. So that said, there is a lot going on. If you're not one of our local listeners and you're listening from somewhere else, I'm going to tell you, you could make a movie about this.
Yes.
And we've talked about it. And who do you want to play you, Fox?
Denzel. not training day, but
Right.
the good Denzel.
So that said, any of these folks that will come back in either a couple of weeks or if we can set something else up in the meantime, we'll let you know. Please do your research. Go Google him. Go look it up on Dark Horse Press. Go watch WLBT's story. And then familiarize yourself with the district attorney's indictment as well. There's a lot of news out there about that. His name is Jody Owens. Francis, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Teresa.
Barney, thank you for being here. Fox, I'm so glad that you're sitting here and that we're not doing this in a jail cell.
Me
It's been a
too,
long
me
time
too.
coming.
Long time
And
coming.
I would like to say one thing before we go. Sheriff Tucker, Madison County,
Mhm.
thank him so much for letting Anthony be housed in his facility.
He was safe
because
there, yeah.
Sheriff Tucker knew, a police officer going to prison's not good. Sheriff Tucker knew the facts of the case.
Yeah.
So, him,
Definitely.
Chief Deputy Jeremy, everybody up there, they were super. Fox had to do time, and
Yeah.
he was there every day.
Every day. Hard
But,
time.
but fortunately, he wasn't in a state prison facility
Right.
to have to deal with that there. So,
And I want to make one statement before we end this live today.
Sure.
I do want to send my condolences to George Robinson and his family, simply
Absolutely.
because
His death is a tragedy, and
It's a-
that's been lost.
exactly, his death is a tragedy, but we need to get something understood that we did not cause his death. We did not cause his death.
and unfortunately, his family will never know exactly what happened,
That's right.
especially in the hotel room.
Exactly.
And that's probably, I won't say it's the most unfortunate. The most unfortunate is an innocent man being taken away from his life for a year and a half. But equal to that almost is the family never knowing what happened to their loved one because of this persecution.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, and like I said, we will come back.
Can I add one more thing?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Barney.
Because I saw some of the stuff that Jody said today about the discrepancy between AMR. He said it was one thing. AMR said one thing on scene, and AMR said something else at the hotel room. Which obviously he said that's probably why Anthony Fox got charged. What AMR said was that they had no patient contact out there. They might have made mistakes saying that. I don't know. I won't get into whatever they did wrong. I don't know what their protocol is. But AMR's statement has nothing to do with us. Our statement stayed the same. They went back and they did tell the truth. They did tell that they did have contact with them. They did go back and tell them this is all on testimony. This is all on transcript. They did go back and tell what they did out there. In the second, AMR went back and said the same thing.
A lot of that, and I know we're about to wrap up, but just to hit on that, a lot of that was situational semantics.
Yes.
Mhm.
Had Mr. Robinson not succumbed to what happened to him that night, nobody would have ever asked AMR about the response to JPD. They didn't have a patient. He refused medical. He's not a patient. There were two different ambulances that responded that night. And the only reason the second one knew about the first one is because the girlfriend was saying, well, the cops did this to him. And it's just those things you would hope a good investigation would have ironed all of that out. But when you're looking to fulfill your holes instead of doing a good investigation,
Is-
you don't get the answers you need.
Right.
Well, and it bears saying that the FBI's investigation did bear those things out.
Yes.
So I also, when we come back next time, there was also some things about the AMR situation that are worth mentioning. Potentially lawsuits and threats by the same people who were trying to perpetrate this allegedly. So that said, if you are watching us, sorry we couldn't wrap it up in an hour and almost a half now. We will come back. We will finish this story because there is so much still left to be said. Guys, I am so grateful for y'all. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Daniel Anderson, Audio Alchemy, he does our podcast for us. And if you need a podcast, like, this is your guy. And he does a fabulous job if you've been watching or if you're listening. We're so grateful for him. Thank you all for listening, and we will be back. Like I said, it'll either be in 2 weeks, not next Thursday because that's Thanksgiving, but the one afterwards, or we will schedule something in between now and then.
We can eat here.
So if y'all are cooking, I'll be here.
I don't know.
I'll bring the turkey.
I don't know. Daniel wants to do that.
We got a lot more to get out.
Oh, we got a whole lot. This ain't
sure.
nothing but the tip of the iceberg. I really think it's important that the public, especially those that had doubt, know what happened that night.
Right. And I think it bears saying also that we've all been accused of things we didn't do.
Yes.
Not so many on the level that you have.
Yes.
But if you still have doubts, think of a time that someone accused you of something that you didn't do and multiply that by about 200 million.
Yep.
So thank you guys all so much for listening, for watching, for commenting. I'll look through your comments and maybe we will get to address them next time. And I will keep you up to date on when the next time will be. Thanks again for watching and listening to Investigation Homicide.